A haunted house? My teeth started to chatter. It was a cold night. Rain lashed against the windows. We were all huddled in the basement of Ricky's house. "It's just an old story," said Ricky, his eyes gleaming. He loved to scare us. "They say it's haunted by the ghost of Old Man Withers. He died in there, you know. Some say he never left." "No way," I said, trying to sound brave. My heart was pounding in my chest. I don't believe in ghosts. But the way Ricky described the old mansion sent shivers down my spine. It was on the edge of town, hidden by overgrown trees. People said strange lights flickered in the windows at night. They said you could hear Old Man Withers's ghostly wails on the wind. "I dare you," Ricky said, his voice a low growl. "I dare you to spend the night in the mansion." The others started to murmur amongst themselves. There was Max, the tall, silent one. He just nodded, his eyes fixed on the flickering light bulb above us. Then there was Sarah, her face pale, clutching a teddy bear. And finally, there was Emily, who usually loved a good scare, but tonight she looked uncertain. "We can't," Emily said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's dangerous." But Ricky just laughed. He pulled out a map from his back pocket, unfolding it on the dusty floor. "There's a secret passage," he said, tracing his finger along the faded lines. "Leads right into the basement. No one will even know we're there." He looked at each of us, his eyes challenging. "So, are you chicken, or are you in?" The rain was coming down even harder now. Thunder boomed overhead, shaking the house. We stood outside the old iron gates of Willow Creek Manor. The wind howled through the trees, twisting the branches like skeletal arms. Lightning flashed, illuminating the mansion in a ghostly glow. It was even creepier than I imagined. The old house loomed before us, dark and imposing. Ivy crawled up its walls like grasping claws. The windows were dark, like empty eyes staring out into the night. I could feel a cold dread creeping into my heart, but it was too late to turn back now. Ricky was already pushing open the gates, a triumphant grin on his face. We crept up the overgrown path, our footsteps muffled by the rain. The air grew colder as we approached the house. I could smell the dampness, the decay. It was like the house itself was exhaling a breath of cold, stale air. We reached the front door. The wood was rotten, eaten away by time and weather. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Ricky pushed the door open with a groan. It creaked open like a mouth about to speak. He gestured for us to follow him inside. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. This was crazy. This was insane. But I couldn't let Ricky see my fear. I stepped across the threshold, leaving the storm behind me and entering the darkness of Willow Creek Manor. The air inside was thick with dust and the smell of decay. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the only light came from the flashes of lightning outside. I could hear the wind whistling through cracks in the walls like the house was breathing. Each gust sent shivers down my spine. "This is insane," Sarah whispered, clutching her teddy bear even tighter. Her voice echoed in the silence. Ricky just laughed, leading us deeper into the house. We walked down a long, dark hallway. Portraits lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow us as we passed. The faces in the portraits were stern and unforgiving, as if judging our every move. We reached a grand staircase. The steps creaked under our weight as we ascended. Every sound echoed in the silence, amplified in the darkness. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. My senses were on high alert, every creak and groan of the house sending a jolt of fear through me. "This way," Ricky whispered, leading us down another hallway. He stopped at a door at the end of the hall. It was slightly ajar. A faint light flickered inside. "This is it," he said, his voice hushed with excitement. "This is the room." The door creaked open, revealing a small, dusty room. A single candle flickered on a table in the center of the room, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The room was sparsely furnished with a four-poster bed, a wardrobe, and a writing desk. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs draped the furniture like ghostly shrouds. Ricky stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. "This is where they found him, you know," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Old Man Withers, dead in his chair." He pointed to a high-backed armchair beside the fireplace. The velvet upholstery was ripped and faded, but I could still imagine Old Man Withers sitting there, his cold, dead eyes staring into nothingness. I stepped inside, my hand trailing along the wall. The wallpaper was rough beneath my fingers, peeling in places to reveal the plaster beneath. The air in the room was heavy, oppressive. It was like something was pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. "There's a secret passage here somewhere," Ricky said, examining the walls. Leads right into the basement. That's how he used to get around unseen. Old man Withers, I mean. He gave us a sly grin. Probably used it to smuggle in his victims. I rolled my eyes at his attempt to scare us, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me since we entered this room. "Let's just find this passage and get out of here," Emily said, her voice tight with anxiety. She was right. The longer we stayed in this room, the more uneasy I felt. It was like the room itself was watching us, its silence a living, breathing presence. We searched the room, our fingers tracing over the dusty walls, looking for any sign of the secret passage. The only sound was the beating of our hearts and the occasional creak of the house settling around us. The candlelight flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls, making it seem like the room itself was alive and breathing. Suddenly we heard it, a noise from downstairs. It was a soft sound like footsteps, slow and deliberate. They were getting closer. We all froze, our eyes wide with fear. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. We held our breath, listening intently. "Who's there?" Ricky called out, his voice trembling slightly. Silence. Then the footsteps started again. This time they were heavier, more insistent. Whoever was down there was coming for us. Panic surged through me. We were trapped. "We need to get out of here," Sarah whispered, her voice high-pitched with terror. She was right. We had to find that secret passage and get out of there fast. Bang! The door swung open, slamming against the wall. We all jumped back, our hearts pounding in our chests. But there was no one there. The hallway beyond was empty. "What was that?" Max whispered, his eyes scanning the shadows. But then, we saw it. A cold mist began to seep out from under the floorboards in the center of the room. It swirled and pulsed, growing larger by the second. I watched in terror as it began to take shape. Two eyes burning like hot coals formed in the mist. Then a mouth twisted into a silent scream. "It's him," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Old man Withers." The ghostly figure rose from the mist, its eyes fixed on us. It was tall and skeletal, its clothes ragged and decayed. It raised a hand, its bony fingers reaching for us. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I was paralyzed with fear. This couldn't be happening. Ghosts weren't real, were they? "Run!" Ricky screamed, breaking the spell that held us captive. We scrambled back away from the ghostly figure, our hearts pounding in our chests. The figure glided towards us, its eyes burning with an eerie light. We stumbled out of the room and into the hallway, our fear lending us speed. The floorboards creaked and groaned under our weight as we ran. The ghostly figure floated behind us, its ragged clothes billowing, its eyes never leaving us. We raced through the darkened mansion, our breath catching in our throats. The house seemed to twist and turn around us, the hallways shifting and changing as if trying to confuse us, to trap us. "This way!" Emily cried, pointing to a narrow staircase that we hadn't noticed before. We scrambled up the steps, our lungs burning, our legs screaming for us to stop. But we couldn't stop, not with that thing on our heels. We burst into another room, slamming the door shut behind us. We leaned against the heavy wood, panting, our chests heaving. The room was dark, lit only by the occasional flash of lightning through the boarded-up windows. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and dust lay thick on every surface. "I think we lost it," Max gasped, trying to catch his breath. But as he spoke, the floorboards beneath our feet began to creak. The room was growing colder, the air thick with a cloying, sickly sweet smell, the smell of decay. "We're trapped," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with terror. She was right. There was no way out of this room. We were trapped with whatever evil haunted this house. The temperature plummeted, sending a shiver down my spine. The flickering candlelight cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, making it seem as if the room itself was closing in on us. We huddled together, our eyes wide with fear, our breaths shallow gasps in the silence. The ghostly figure materialized before us, rising from the floorboards like a phantom from our worst nightmares. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and its skeletal hand reached out towards us. A silent scream escaped Sarah's lips as she buried her face in her teddy bear. The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. The stench of decay intensified, filling our lungs with the suffocating smell of death. I closed my eyes, unable to bear the sight of the ghostly figure any longer. Then a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. It was a scream filled with such terror, such agony that it sent shivers down my spine. I opened my eyes just in time to see the ghostly figure vanish into thin air, taking the scream with it. Silence descended upon the room once more, heavy and absolute. We were left in darkness, our hearts pounding in our chests, the echo of the scream still ringing in our ears. What happened next, and whether we escaped the horrors of Willow Creek Manor, remains a haunting mystery to this day.